Everyone. I am Kim Hughes, and this is the January 9th edition of Sane Crypto Live. And today we're going to tackle a really important question, a very sane question, which is, what are you really investing in when you buy a Bitcoin or any of these other cryptocurrencies? And are all of these currencies created equal? And I think this is really important because people are rushing into cryptocurrencies without understanding, thinking that they are buying something like a stock, and it very much isn't. Okay? There was a really good article in CoinDesk's 2017 Year in Review series, which was titled 2018's Challenge: What Are Crypto Assets Really Worth? Which is a question that goes hand in hand with, what are you really buying? And it is fascinating and telling to me that this question gets almost no coverage at all in the mainstream press, a sure sign of the frothiness of this market. But make no mistake, it is a topic that is being discussed at great length among serious investment managers and Wall Street trading desks. So let me read you a quote from the article. It says, quote, "This is quite unlike the behavior of some traditional assets, such as stocks, which have very well defined value characteristics, i.e. dividends and price appreciation arising out of expectations of future cash flows generated by a firm. In contrast, the value characteristics of crypto assets are very hard to define, let alone standardize for a valuation framework." And then it later says, "It is possible to create an immensely successful platform or protocol enabled by a token where the value accrues to the users instead of the token holders." So let's break this down, okay? Now, so the most important point here is that 99 times out of 100, you are not buying ownership in a company when you buy these cryptocurrencies. In fact, in many cases, there may not even be a company. In fact, most cases, these are open source software projects. So there is no expectation or promise that if that particular crypto project is even wildly successful, which first of all, most of them aren't, but even if it is, that any of that value will go to the token holders. Okay? So if that's true, then what are you buying? And how do you value it? So new tokens are brought to market in something known as an ICO, or initial coin offering. Okay, but unlike an IPO, initial public offering, with stocks, again, you are not getting shares of the company or the underlying project. This is just a crowdfunding model, okay? And what's happening is that participants in the ICO are essentially donating money to the project because they believe in it. And instead of a price break and a cool t-shirt like you get with a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo project, you get tokens and bragging rights if it turns out that, one day it's a big success, right? And so if that's true, if you're just making a donation, then why would you even want those tokens, you might ask? Okay, well, so to understand, we'll start all the way at the very beginning. I think it helps to very quickly understand the beginnings of cryptocurrency, okay? So it was started by a group of libertarian thinkers who wanted an alternative, decentralized, trustless form of transfer, of value transfer. Okay, not just money, but that's where it started. So, in other words, this was and is at its core a social movement as much as it is a technological one. Okay. So in the beginning, right, the vision was that, there were no centralized banks or brokers or governments or even companies controlling any of this. It was a system that required no middleman. So rather than companies, you can think of each of these blockchain projects as like a distributed internet tribe who come together around some idea or interest or problem, which these tribes are formally known as decentralized autonomous organizations, DAOs. Okay, which, unlike companies who have one legal entity and a board and a CEO and lots of employees to deliver the good or service, DAOs have no central legal entity and no employees. They have volunteers. Okay, so the entire system is built around this group consensus, and the tokens, okay, Ether, Bitcoin, Ripple, whatever, okay, they provide the central mechanism that grants access to the network and incentivizes work to be done amongst all the disparate players. That's how this can be done without, this central organization. Okay. So when these projects launched to, especially in the beginning, right, to create these, this brave new world, the original contributors were funding projects that they believed in and would like to use. So an ICO really, excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. An ICO is really just a fancy Kickstarter project. But instead of the promise to deliver the drone or the book or, the new cooler that keeps your beer at a perfect 42 degrees for a solid week, if they are successful, right? And many Kickstarter projects aren't, and, neither are these. The ICO is just a promise to provide access to the new browser or social media platform or the blockchain's version of Upwork or whatever it is. And again, it's just a promise because most of these ICOs don't exist yet. They are an idea being crowdfunded. All right, with me so far? Okay, so fast forward to 2017, when the price of these tokens starts shooting up and a bunch of people who have no idea what they really represent start buying them. As an investor, okay, the big question is, if these tokens represent access to a given network or application, how do they have value? Because as a true investor with no interest in having access to or participating in the underlying project, which, by the way, the kind of a still libertarian fundamentalist group find loathsome, but so be it, right? So if I have no interest in participating in that, in actually getting on that network and doing whatever it is, right? What value do these things have, especially when most of them convey no ownership rights? That's the question. So there was a paper floating around Wall Street trading desks recently by a guy named John Pfeffer, a former KKR partner, and his valuation model was the first that I have seen. Maybe there's others out there, but it made a point that seemed obvious to me, right? And I will link to it in the show notes. But let me try to give you a simple way of thinking about the conclusion he came to, or conclusions, actually. So basically, in his model, and in my way of thinking as well, at least for the moment, you have two different types of tokens. You have utility tokens and monetary tokens. Okay, and again, I'll spare you the math that he uses, but the conclusion that it comes to is that utility tokens, which is the vast majority of what is out there in the world of the thousands of cryptocurrencies that currently exist, I would say probably 99% of them will fall into this, at least for purposes of this discussion, this utility token category. Okay. The conclusion is that at equilibrium, which is, some point still in the future, but nonetheless, not the distant future, will have almost no value above and beyond the cost of the computing power and resources required to maintain them. Okay. So I found an excellent analogy for these types of tokens in A Gentle Introduction to Digital Tokens by Anthony Lewis. I will link to the Pfeffer paper as well as this in the notes. So these tokens are similar to, we can think of them like a ticket at a sporting event. Okay. The equilibrium price arrived at in the Pfeffer paper is like the face value of the ticket. But that price can be driven up and down based on scarcity and sentiment. Okay. If the team is really, really, really good and seats are totally sold out, then scalpers may get many multiples of the face value. If the team is bad and there are plenty of tickets available, then they sell on the secondary market for much less than face value. Okay, so in that model, the price of a token on the open market should be some reflection of the consensus about the future success and failure of the project amongst those who want to access it, but not meaningfully different from, quote, face value, okay, or, if we want to call it fair value. All right. But what happens when investors pour in, especially uninformed investors, is you have something like multiple layers of scalpers on Super Bowl tickets. Before long, people are buying just with the intention of turning around and selling it to the next greater fool, which is what a bubble really is. And face value in any relationship to the current price to it is totally lost. Okay. But the key point under this valuation model is that when the music stops, 99% of these utility tokens will have failed, and even the ones that are very successful will have little intrinsic value to an investor, to a straight token holder for investment purposes. Now, an alternative analysis and conclusion exists for monetary coins, and in Pfeffer's paper, in particular, the monetary token that wins the battle to become the new de facto store of value, i.e. the digital version of gold. And at the moment, the front runner for that is Bitcoin, although, there are others in the race as well. Okay. So in that case, okay, if one of these coins becomes the new de facto store of value, then the price at equilibrium is not driven by sentiment, but more just strictly by the scarcity. Because one thing that I forgot to mention is that one of the unique characteristics of tokens is that unlike fiat currencies like the US dollar, British pound, or whatever, Italian lira, there is a finite number of each cryptocurrency. The number of Bitcoin is the number of Bitcoin ever. Okay, no central bank can just keep printing more. So if you have a finite number of coins, in the case of Bitcoin, 21 million coins, which are today and only ever will be 21 million coins, and today are worth $247 billion market cap, and you have literally trillions and trillions of dollars of gold and offshore cash trying to find a new home, because Bitcoin is a better store of value than gold, then there is some inherent value in the token itself above and beyond what is required to maintain the token, which is, so if you put all that together and say, okay, so Kim, that's a lot. Maybe I understand more than I did. But so what conclusion do I reach? Well, one conclusion I have reached is that is one of many reasons I stay away from altcoins and ICOs, because basically if that's the game you're playing, one, make sure you're just playing for entertainment. Because basically you have to know that you are playing a game of musical chairs in which you are buying in hopes of selling to the next greater fool, and whoever ends up holding the bag, and it literally is a bag of worthless coins, basically, or excessively overvalued coins when the music stops, is going to get burned. Okay? All right. So hopefully you found that helpful. If you would like to see other of my live broadcasts, because I do them every day, Monday through Friday at roughly somewhere around this time. Actually, I'm a little late today. That took a while to put together, but you can get notifications of these broadcasts via Facebook Messenger. Just go to sanecrypto.com/live, and our bot will be happy to send you notifications. You can unsubscribe at any time. If you'd like to learn more about the Sane crypto system of investing, you can go to sanecrypto.com. And remember, disclaimer, y'all, everything that I have said is for educational purposes only. Nothing should be construed as investment advice. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. All investments involve risk, especially these. So, understand that it could go to zero tomorrow. So do not, under any circumstances, invest money that you cannot afford to lose. All right? Deal? All right, thanks for listening. I will be back tomorrow with another installment of Sane Crypto Live. Until then, remember, you guys, you are the biggest impediment to making money in the markets, not the market itself. Fear and greed cause you to do the exact opposite of what you should be doing, and the way that you control that fear and greed is a sane system decided on in advance, repeated over and over again, no matter what your monkey brain says. I hope that helps. I'm Kim Hughes of SaneCrypto.com. Bye for now.